Welcome to the March 26th, 2017 Guitar Blog episode on acoustic guitar riffs and licks. You know, really smooth sounding acoustic riffs are not just fun to learn and to play, they also have a unique quality to them. It's an effect that tends to relax the listener, making for some excellent, easy listening guitar music in a lot of cases. And, you know, as a guitarist, these types of acoustic ideas can be very beneficial to learn because they work to both help train the hands on how to move through phrases that involve small chords, and they isolate sections of scales to help the guitar student learn more about the neck patterns for chords and scales. So in this lesson, we're going to have a look at a collection of acoustic ideas that use chords and scale fragments to produce riffs and licks. All right, in example one, we're going to take a look at a major key melodic harmony and go through some techniques to help you better understand how you can start writing music like this on your own. And I think it's important to state right out front here that acoustic riffs track harmony in a really interesting way. They can create very dreamy, flowing chord progressions. And to develop this approach, you know, in your own acoustic playing, just test the use of different open strings against each chord that you're practicing and applying. You know, if you take a small chord shape, add some opens around it. How do they sound? You know, take a C note, for instance. What's the tones like that you have around there? Adding other notes generally is just going to add extensions or some kind of suspended concept or maybe a add type interval. So really experiment with that a lot. Take chords very laterally and understand how, you know, you can add in some of the open strings. It's a really simple process even if you don't know theory. If you play a note and it sounds bad, don't use it, you know. And if it sounds really cool, you know, or maybe you can integrate it in a way against another chord, well, you're probably on to something. Now, in this progression, I've got some interesting things happening here. There's some licks that happen out front off the G chord and then into a C sound. So we got just some guitar lick ideas happening there. Off open E into the G, into the hammer on, open D and open G string up on the third string there. And then we have the hammer on pull off on the fourth string. Come around off that C back to the fourth string. Then the second measure is kind of interesting too because we have this slide idea that brings us around to a C suspended second sound. And then we move up to that D add 4 idea. So we just have the movement up into third fret with the fourth and third strings open above it, and then we're taking that fifth fret D off of the fifth string and adding in an F sharp and a G open third on top of that. Now into the third measure it gets kind of interesting because we're going to highlight an E minor sound. And because the intervals get wider there, you know, you can just use whatever kind of folk finger style approach. If you're a little bit training in the background for you in classical, you can use that approach. But this is going to be a little bit more challenging when you hit this third measure on the downbeat because we have an open string in the bass, right? And then we're going to be dealing with fourth string and third string. So I'm using my index finger and my ring finger to achieve that, you know, just going across the intervals there. Just be careful on some of the wider intervals when you have them. You might have to practice them more to get them down pat. After that, we're going to move across. Just sort of like the notes of a G major chord, but you know, the way they're spread out off that B, it's also a little bit implying a B minor quality, even though all the notes aren't there for B minor. And this gets into that world a little bit here of diatonic substitution. I'm not going to dig into that because it will get way off track if I tried talking about that. So go check out some of my videos I've got on diatonic substitutes, doing diatonic substitutions, just a way to swap out other diatonic chords for you know, whatever is going on at the moment. Check it out. I think you're going to find it very useful, especially for stuff involved with acoustic guitar like this. Let's move on though to the last measure. I've got a D add 4 coming around on that measure. Fifth string, fourth string, open third, and I have a D up top there on third fret, second string. Nice D major-ish kind of sound there with the D and the F sharp on fifth and fourth frets of the fifth and fourth strings. And you get this nice kind of overtones coming through there on that one. A very cool sound. That chord can function really nicely also after a C chord. Okay, so you can tell it's all G major based ideas. have fun with that one. That's example number 1, all major key based concepts going on there. We're going to take a short break, come back in a moment, and take a look at example number 2, where we're going to go into the minor key and do some melodic harmony techniques. All right, now we're dealing with some minor key melodic harmony techniques. And just like we saw in example 1, the harmonies of acoustic songs can offer guitar players a lot more blended color through the use of the open strings. And the minor key riff in example 2 here includes some extensions by way of a 6th interval on the D and C chords. It's found in measure 2 there. And another interesting effect gets applied in measure 4 with first inversion D major chord that places an F sharp in the base of the chord there. So you get the F sharp down below. And that can be easily extended if you want to add the D tone up on top there. Maybe you want to turn it into D dominant 7th. It's got some options there on that one. So first inversion, we've got the 6th intervals that are getting added in. Let's all get to work here in breaking this down so you really understand how everything fits together. Now off of the beginning there, we've got some nice color into the E minor sound by way of hitting the open 6th string E. And then I'm moving forward with a quick move from the 7th fret to the 9th fret there, 16th notes. So it's quicker, you know. And then what we're doing is we're adding in, we're having the B tone at the 9th fret of the 4th string come in right after that C tone drops down from it there. And then on top of that we have a high B open string and a G open string coming around to sort of map things out and really bring around that nice color of the E minor sound. Right, so that's measure 1. And then in measure 2, what happens is we're doing a leading tone there of open 5th string into the 5th fret D there. So it's just like a pickup note. So open A to the D tone on 5th string. 7th fret of the 4th string comes in next. It's an A on that string, 7th fret. And then we have these open strings of G and B once again. Now that creates a kind of an interesting chord sound. We have the D, we have the A there, so it's like a power chord. Then we have the G coming in, and then that's the 4th, so that's our suspended 4th. And then with the B added yet in there too, that brings in that 6th color, you know. Really interesting sound. Then on top of that, what we're going to do in that same measure is we're going to add a C tone down below, 8th fret, and then we're going to add in an A at 7th fret 4th string, and then still include the 3rd and 2nd strings open. So we have a lot going on there. So you can decide how you want to do those stretches. You could reach over to it with the ring finger maybe if small finger is kind of tough for you. So that takes care of that measure. Then we're heading into the next, the 3rd measure here, where we have E minor sounds coming at you again. And that's going to include open E. We've got the E tone, the octave, basically 7th fret, and the 4th string. And then we're going to add in, oh, I played the wrong note there, sorry. It's not the B, it's going to be the G there. We want the color of E minor. Sorry about that. We're going to go, let's go through this again. So open E, we have the 7th fret and the 5th fret on the 4th string into an open 3rd string G on top there. Then we're going to move over to the G chord and outline that G chord by way of having the low G in the bass, open 4th and 3rd strings with a high D note on the 3rd fret of 2nd string on top. So we have those two movements there. And And then we just head over to a really basic C major chord, but we're going to do a plucked pattern there where we have the two outside tones of 5th string and 2nd string played at the same time, so it's basically an octave. Then we go across the C chord, we're going to add in the E tone, 2nd fret, 4th string, we'll have open 3rd string. And then we'll just make it around to the final chord there, the D with F sharp in the bass. All right, so let's just work through that nice and slow one more time here. So go slowly through that one. There's some twists and turns to it. There's lots of the 3rd and 2nd string open going on there with also 4th string open. So this just, gets back to what I was mentioning earlier on how take some tones and take some notes around the neck and just try to discover, what can I do with this? How can I maybe add in another note? Or, take a common chord that and break it down in some odd way. Maybe add another tone on top that you'd never normally think of using with it. Just keep experimenting like that because, it's like I said a little bit earlier on, it's either going to sound really bad, and if it sounds bad, don't use it. And if it sounds good, then try to incorporate it. If you don't know your theory, up to all these levels of saying, hey, that's a 6th, that's a suspended, that's an add chord, that's an inversion. If you don't know that stuff, it doesn't matter too much in the beginning. Just chase the music, try and understand what kind of things you like, the way they sound, and try to keep moving around different patterns, work on your technique. As your technique gets better, and as your knowledge of the neck gets better, and you discover more ideas, the theory will keep growing, as long as you pursue it. You don't want to be one of those people that just never bothers to study theory because, you'll be 50 or 60 years old and you'll be wishing that you did it years ago because, there's a learning curve to all this stuff. And it's not just technical, there's a lot of ideas that are, based around the theory of how all this information operates. And the more you know and understand it, the better the player you will become because you'll grow on all these levels, So, break this stuff down and understand how it works. Play it up to a decent tempo, but then really try to make something of your own out of it. Try and branch off of what these ideas are that I'm giving you and go in other directions with them. It's going to be really good for your own personal playing and work on your creativity and all that. So that wraps up everything to do with part 1 of this video. And what we're going to do next is head over to the members area in part 2, where I've got a little bit more going on with you in terms of ideas that I want to cover. We're going to go through concepts that are based around, I'm just going to look at my notes here, what we're going to do next. We're going to take a look at arpeggiated major key riffs and licks. I have some picked pattern minor key riffs that we're going to look at with some connecting licks as well. So I think you're really going to enjoy the picked pattern ideas because, that's such a large part of some of the famous acoustic tunes like Dust in the Wind by Kansas or maybe Landslide, so by Fleetwood Mac. So, really work on some of these ideas that I'm showing you on these finger picking concepts too, because they can be very cool in your playing to add in. Plus, they'll probably get you some interesting gigs that, you may not have with your top 40 bands and all that. So I'm going to wrap things up now for part 1, and we will catch up next in the members area. Thanks for watching part 1 of the lesson. Be sure to sign up for a membership at creativeguitarstudio.com to watch part 2. In part 2, we'll study how to add arpeggiated lines as well as picking patterns and connecting licks. Plus, as a member, you'll be able to download the handout for this lesson plan as well as many other professionally presented guitar lessons. Thanks, and we'll catch up next in the members area.